let's understand more in detail of consignment procurement primary transaction keys. I have created other videos explaining these concepts, how these account transaction keys, how it triggers, when it will trigger and all. But I felt it is good to explain one more time because to be more precise and more understanding. So please follow this video, be with me, and my intention is only one thing. If you pay attention, I'll make it a more logical way and engaging way. But I also need your support. Like I know how we watch sometimes videos, right? But this video, just pay attention. If you pay attention once, and I'm trying my level best to register these transaction keys which are related to consignment procurement type.
Let's start with consignment payable account. So this will trigger when you start using the consignment stock. For example, you have a consignment stock in your warehouse, and this account will be triggered when you start using that consignment stock. This, when I say using the consignment stock, you can use the consignment stock in two ways. One, you directly use the consignment stock without changing the ownership to your stock. And second way, you change the ownership of the consignment stock to your stock and then start using it, meaning consuming it, right? In these two cases, this KON account will be triggered, meaning this is a consignment stock and you started using it, it gets reduced, decreased, will be in the credit side, okay? So one of the way where you consume the consignment stock directly, that situation GBB-VBR will come into picture to offset that entry. So that scenario is you started consuming the consignment stock directly without changing the ownership for your internal use. That time GBB-VBR will come into picture. When I say you consume internally, again here there will be two ways you can consume. One way is you consume this consignment stock directly against your cost center. Second way is you consume this consignment stock directly against your production order. I come to the first point. When you consuming this consignment stock directly against your cost center, think of this example where your admin team using the consignment stock of A4 sheets against their department cost center, right? It is clear. Second, you are using this consignment stock against the production order. In this example, you can take as raw materials. So you have a consignment stock as raw materials as consignment stock, and your production department using it and the stock from consignment direct itself. And the production order to consume the consignment stock, they can use it directly. You don't have to convert that into your stock. Clear, right? The third one is BSX inventory account. So this scenario comes in. Here we have spoken about second scenario where you are using this consignment stock and changing that ownership to your stock. It is becoming your stock, which means your own inventory is increasing. This case, BSX account will be triggered. So we spoke, consignment account will be triggered in two ways. One, when you consume, again consume will be in two ways, against cost center, against production order. And this will be triggered when you change the ownership of the stock to your stock, which means your inventory account is increasing. BSX account will be triggered. Clear, right? The last one, WRX account. This is not part of consignment procurement team. This is part of standard procurement process. Here what happens when I receive when I process GR again a standard purchase order, I receive that stock into my stock. My stock is increasing, right? That time, this is the offsetting entry where it will be credited to settle the to pay the vendor invoice, right? So you have received the goods into your stock, and you also have to pay for that because the stock has become yours. You're liable to pay the vendor. That time, WRX account will be come into picture. Remember these four transaction keys, okay? Now we will stick to a scenario where to discuss further where BSX is involved, meaning my inventory is getting increased. When in consignment procurement also there is one scenario, my inventory is increasing. In standard procurement process also where my inventory is increasing. Let's stick to this scenario and understand both the procurement types in the system and with respect to these posting keys, how they are behaving. Okay. Now, in consignment procurement, when my when I do 411k transaction, 411k movement type, my inventory is increasing because I'm changing the ownership consignment to my own stock. So my own inventory is increasing. So BSX account will be triggered. So this is my consignment stock and changing the ownership of my stock to the company's inventory. So this gets reduced credit side. This is increasing debit side. In standard procurement time, I am taking the stock against the purchase order and my inventory is increasing. For that, I have to pay the vendor. So WRX account will be triggered. Now let's go further in detail. So now the scenario is you received the stock, right? In the system. So when you receive the stock in standard, you use movement type 101, goods received. Your BSX is increased, your WRX is credited. In consignment, you change the ownership of the consignment stock to your stock. Your BSX is increased, debited, your consignment liability account is credited, decreased. Let's go further. Now in the system, I performed 101 movement type GR through Migo transaction, and what you see is that stock has become your stock already. So BSX is debited, WRX is credited in the system. Okay, previous slide to this slide is only difference in the system how it looks. Okay, but here when you do the same step for consignment, there will be no accounting document generated like this because here we use movement type 101k, which means it's a consignment stock. It's not your own stock. So no accounting document will be created. But when my accounting document will be created, meaning when this consignment stock will be my stock, when I have done the movement type 411k through transfer posting, here ownership change is happening. This time consignment KON account gets credited, BSX account where your inventory is increasing gets debited. So here first step itself, while doing the GR itself, you got your BSX debited, your stock increased, WRX gets credited. But here we need to do one more extra step, that is transfer posting with movement type 411k. Then only it has become your stock. Then only your BSX is gets credited, and your consignment account gets credited. So what happens when you are generating the documents to process payments, right? So for standard, you use Miro. This will validate verification invoice. Invoice verification will be done, which means you are generating documents for payments, right? So in the previous slide, WRX is negative. Here WRX will be positive and your vendor account will be credited. This will be negative value, which indicates that whenever your accounts payable team sees this vendor and they know that this is the amount we're supposed to pay to the vendor. Clear, right? When it comes to consignment procurement team, we do MRKO. Here one thing we need to understand, in standard procurement team, you receive the invoice also along with your goods most of the time. If not, you will receive later for sure. Meaning, vendor supplied goods and he also given you the invoice to pay for it. But in this consignment scenario, vendor supplied the goods to you, but he doesn't know when you are going to consume and how many you are going to consume. Because of this reason, he can't give you the invoice. For that, you create a settlement order, settlement document using MRKO based on your usage, right? That time your BSX and your consignment account is negative here, right? And if you see accounts payable C negative, accounts payable C positive, and here consignment vendor account is in negative, and there is also tax component, so it's also in the positive side, and this is the amount you are liable to pay to the vendor. So whenever again your accounts payable department sees this vendor account and it will be in the negative credit side, which means you are liable to pay this much amount to your vendor for consuming the consignment stock. Here for receiving the stock, here for consuming the stock. That's why it is settlement document. This is an invoice verification. Clear, right?